Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this live webinar today. The time is now 11 a.m. on this beautiful foggy spring morning in San Francisco, and today we will be talking about everything you need to know to get started with Odoo. My name is Clark, and I am a functional consultant here at Odoo San Francisco, and I'll be hosting today's session, which will be presented by my colleague Nathan Moss. Before we begin, I just want to go over a few procedural items about this webinar. Today's presentation should last for 30 to 40 minutes, which will leave us about 20 minutes for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Throughout Nathan's presentation, I will be answering your questions in the chat box on the right to the video, so please keep your questions coming throughout the presentation. I'll do my best to answer them there, and I'll also collect the most relevant questions for Nathan and I to discuss at the end of the webinar during the Q&A. Excuse me. Also note that today's session is being recorded, so please, you can review it at any time by just going to the URL at the top of the page. This is the same as the access link that you got if you signed up for the webinar. If you got here by another means, it's just the URL, and the recording will be here available in perpetuity. Also, if you're interested in future webinars, please subscribe to our channel to stay up to date, our YouTube channel, to stay up to date on what we broadcast. We're expanding our lineup to functional topics, business topics, and more. So please, if you're interested, sign up for our YouTube channel and you'll receive notifications and you can view our whole schedule of webinars. And with that, I'll turn it over to Nathan.
Thank you, Clark, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before beginning, I'd like to better explain mine and Clark's roles here at Odoo. So my role here as a business advisor is to help customers with their evaluation of the software. I help customers by understanding the softwares they're using today, understanding the pain points that are associated with those softwares, and then demonstrating how their current operations can be streamlined and better organized with Odoo. So I answer questions about specific functionality within the software as well as best practices for implementation. So Clark is a functional consultant. His department specifically handles the implementation side of Odoo Online. So once evaluations are completed by my department and a customer is onboarded, the next step is to work with Clark's team to get your data into the system and then make sure all the applications are configured correctly to your workflows. So through one-on-one dedicated consulting, it's their goal to get you guys up and running with your core apps as quickly as possible, which typically lasts anywhere between 1 and 4 months, of course, depending on the size and scope of the project. Okay, so let's look into our webinar for today. Let's look into the agenda there. First and foremost, we're just going to explore how to get started with Odoo. So we're going to create a new trial database, then walk through the best practices for database management. I'll show you guys how to configure your company data, adding your logo and company information that's going to populate into reports. And then we'll review, of course, how to install apps, how to navigate through the database efficiently, and I'll give you some tips and tricks for getting your data in and out of the system with our import and export tools as well. Then just reviewing our basic productivity and standard applications, and then we'll go through one example workflow to see it all in action. Alrighty. As for what we are reviewing today, first and foremost, Odoo's totally modular, so let's start there before actually diving in. What does modular mean? Modular means we're going to be selecting the specific applications we want to put into this database. We also are going to see some repeating motifs as we work through. We'll see the same thing in multiple apps, basically. We're going to see our Kanban view. We're going to see multiple different views. We're going to see our same reports user interface, as well as a draft to confirmed logic, which I'll touch on a bit more later on. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go ahead and get started. So starting off with database management, we're just going to go ahead and try it free. So right now, just on odoo.com, just going to go in here to try it free, and let's go ahead and start a trial. So clicking on our CRM app here, that's the app I'm going to start with. And now all I have to do is enter in my information here. So I'm going to say Nathan Moss. Here's my email address. Company name as an example. I'll put my phone number there. And of course the company size. Alrighty, and now start now. So now I'm being redirected here. This is going to take me into a trial database where I will have my CRM app installed as well as our basic productivity apps. Okay. So here we are. First thing, one thing to note, our activation is pending. So this trial will only last for 4 hours if I do not activate via email. So it could take about a minute before that email actually arrives here in my inbox. I'll be sure to touch on that in just one moment. Also, one thing to note is just database management. So best practices, once you guys are onboarded and have a production database up and running, if you wanted to add applications or run any sort of testing later on, what you want to do is actually create a duplicate of your database. So going into, clicking on my username here, just going to my Odoo.com account, I'll be able to see all the databases that I have here. So let's see, just sign in here. And let's see. Okay, so let's see. You got to activate first here. Let's see if that all came through here. And let's refresh. So once we activate, all we have to do is follow this link here. So clicking to activate the database now. And now I get to choose a password. So there's my email address. Entering in a password now. And let's activate the database. Okay, so here's my database now. Now I can come into my Odoo.com account. Here's my database now. I can go to manage my databases. And as you can see, I can create a duplicate of this database. I could even rename it. I can even download a backup and even look into the domains and contact support directly from here. Also have the opportunity to create a new database, basically starting another trial there. So just one thing to note, best practices, if you guys are going to run some testing on a live database, go ahead and make a duplicate of that database and then make any changes that you'd like to once you have that duplicate up and running. Okay. So let's see. Let's go back into my database here. Just going to go back to Moss & Associates. First and foremost, let's go ahead and configure my company data. So I just want to add a logo, things of that nature. Just going to go into settings here. Got to go to users and companies. Let's click on our company here, and now we have to edit, and we can go ahead and add in all of this relevant information here. So adding in your website, adding in your address, all of this information is actually going to populate into reports that you're sending over to customers, such as a quotation that you're going to print out. It'll actually have this phone number, fax, and email at the bottom of that page. So make sure that this information is correct. You can also select your default currency. We have euros and US dollars here out of the box. I'll just go ahead and use USD for now. And let me go ahead and I'm going to add in my logo. Okay, have to remember to save here. And now I have this logo saved, and again, this will populate into my reports such as quotations, delivery orders, things of that nature. So that's how we can go in and actually configure our company data. Let's touch on user access rights here. So just going into users and users, this is where we can actually add in a new user. So for example, I'm going to create a new user here. I'm going to add Clark. And let's add his email. Just going to use a test email here. So we'll say clark@test.com. Right down below, this is where we can actually manage our user access rights. So on a user-by-user basis, the admin can decide which apps the user has access to. You can even edit more specific access to actions that take place within an application by accessing our technical settings as well, which I'll show you how to do in just a moment. This is something that our implementation team can definitely assist with, and it's a bit outside of the scope of this webinar. One thing to note, though, however, is changing access rights for the settings application can actually allow a user to access our apps application and install more applications. So if I want Clark to be able to add in more apps, I have to make sure I go to administration here in settings. So let me just go ahead. I'm going to save this in for now. Okay, and again, to access more technical settings and open that up so I can actually see the specific actions within this, I'm going to go back to our dashboard here. I can activate the developer mode. So developer mode here, this gives us access to more technical settings. I don't recommend accessing this unless you know what you're accessing it for. But going into settings now, going back into users, let's find Clark here, and I want to see more specific access rights that I can give him. So those will be found right down here in these checkboxes. As you can see, I can open up multi-currency as well as multi-company here for Clark as well. So just one thing to note, and again, definitely would check in with an advisor or your consultant before actually accessing these settings here. Okay, so we're going to deactivate the developer mode, and let's continue. Okay, so next thing I want to show you guys is just installing applications. So all we have to do is go into our apps app here. Let's see, that's the first step. Now, of course, we can access our over 40 apps here, and we have over 300 modules as well that bolster the functionality within these applications. So the difference between an app and a module, let's start there. An app stands alone, while a module adds functionality to that standalone app or group of apps. One thing to note as well, some applications will actually be housed together when they're both installed. One example of this is our CRM and sales application. CRM allows you to manage a pipeline and track communication with the customer, while sales allows you to draft and send quotations to customers. It makes sense for these to be housed together as their workflows do overlap. So you can install CRM without sales and vice versa, but when they're both installed, they will live together under the sales application. So as an example, just going to install sales now. As you can see, it's going to give me the dependent apps here. So it's actually going to install sales as well as invoicing. Let's just go ahead and confirm. It's going to bring me right back to the dashboard, and I'll be able to see my sales application is there. So one note on this dependencies here, as you can see, it's giving us sales and invoicing. We can see all the dependencies on an application just by going to our pricing page. And the easiest way to find our pricing page is just to Google Odoo Online Pricing. So to find our Odoo Online here, just click in. And we'll be able to see all the dependencies on a specific application by seeing the link that is right next to that application. So as you can see, e-commerce requires website, invoicing, and sales. Same thing goes for sales. It requires invoicing like we just saw. So that's one way you can find the dependencies of a specific application. Okay. So as you can see, we now have our sales application here. And again, sales now houses our CRM as well. Okay. Also, just going to go back into our apps app here. I'm going to add our contact module. So this is actually a free application, but we're going to dive in here. We're actually going to handle the import and export out of here in just a moment as well. Okay, so once we go back to the dashboard, let's go over our basic productivity. So Odoo has standard productivity apps that are free of charge within a subscription. Let's see. We also have our apps dashboard and hotkeys. So let's start there before actually diving into those apps. Any object or configuration that you can think of in Odoo, you can actually find by simply typing in from our main apps dashboard. For example, if I want to find quotations, I can simply begin typing quotations and save myself a few clicks by choosing the proper result from the list. So now I've been navigated into our sales app to see our quotations here. And again, handled that just by typing directly here from our dashboard. To ease your navigation through Odoo even further, we also have shortcuts that can be accessed by clicking on your username here, then on shortcuts. So we can see all these different hotkeys here basically to save, edit a record, rather than clicking. If you'd rather go ahead and actually make the type it in, this is where you can access those keyboard shortcuts. Okay, now to those productivity apps. Let's see, we have here on this dashboard, we have Discuss. So Discuss allows us to communicate internally throughout Odoo. I'll definitely dive in there in just one moment. Our calendar here can synchronize with Google Calendar. It allows you to add events internally or create meetings associated with a lead through your CRM. Through Contacts here, Contacts is where we'll actually see some of the motifs that are found throughout Odoo. So let's click on into Contacts here. So we have our multiple views. So views is one of those motifs. We have our Kanban view here, what we call a card view. This is what's going to be the default in any application. We can also access a list view here in the top right-hand corner. So as you can see, we can see these different contacts here in the list. And we also have our form view. So when we actually click in and see this actual form here, where we're actually going to store this information. Okay, so let's touch on the importing side of things. To go ahead and import in contacts into the system, we have some templates that are actually available in the implementation column of our settings application. So let's go there now and access this file. So just going into settings here, here's our implementation column. Let's go into sales and customers. So here is our Excel template where we can actually edit this template with our own data and then make the import from there. So let's open this up now. Okay. Alrighty, so now looking at the spreadsheet, some common errors to note when importing include improper formatting of the state and country fields in an address. So some fields are simple text fields to be brought into the system, while others have already have values stored in tables that the system is going to reference. So to get these records into the system correctly, they must match the exact formatting that exists within these tables. For example, the country field of an address must be capitalized and spelled correctly each time. So for example, our state and country fields, again, capitalized and spelled all the way through, no acronyms here. Spelling these all the way out will be the best practices there. For the sake of this webinar, I'm actually going to create an error by making one of our states here incorrectly formatted. So clicking in on California here, see if this will allow me to edit here. Okay. It looks like we need to activate Excel on this laptop, actually. It's not going to let me make the error for us.
Sorry about that, Nathan. We just set that laptop up for this presentation today. You could try using Google Sheets.
Okay.
Sorry to throw a monkey wrench in your plans there.
Nah.
I do apologize for that.
No problem whatsoever. I guess we can pass on the error. We'll do a successful upload of this import file, and then we'll have some more contacts to work with there. Okay, so we'll just work with this file as is, and we'll go ahead and handle the import now. Okay. So let me just exit out here, and we'll access in just a moment. So going back into our contacts module, to handle this import, all we have to do is access our list view here. And now as you can see, we have this import feature. So let me click in here. First step is just to select a CSV or Excel file to import. So let's go ahead and load this up. Let's find our downloads here, and there's our customers. So let's open this up. So the system's actually going to recognize the first row of this spreadsheet as the fields to be imported. As you can see, external ID, name, job position, is a company. If these are incorrect, you could, of course, drill in and select the specific field that this is corresponding to. But with this template, of course, it's going to catch the correct fields there. It's going to map all this information in properly. Okay, so the next step is to validate. If we had an error at this step, as you can see, it says everything seems valid. If we had that error in our spreadsheet, it would actually give us the exact row and the contents of the cell so that we can go back into our spreadsheet, make the necessary edits, and then we could actually reload the file. So the system will actually tell you where the error occurs if there is an error in your import. Okay, so let's just go ahead and import this in now. Everything seems valid, so we'll be all set to go. And now that we've imported, we now have more contacts in the system. So let's look back at our Kanban view. As you can see, we now have the company AgriLay as well as Edward Foster, who is associated with that company, as well as Camp to Camp. So all set to go there, making our edits and bringing that into the system. So now that we have some contacts to work with, we can now see the value of our search filters. So just opening this up, clicking on this magnifying glass here, these filters exist in most apps throughout Odoo and allow you to efficiently find the data and records that you're looking for. As an example, let's group all of these together by country. So as you can see, we have some that don't even have a defined country. We have France and the United States. Let's see. We could also handle basic OR searches. You can kind of add as many as you'd like to just by going to adding a custom filter here. You can actually specify any field that's associated with this object, so with these contacts. So you can see a lot of different information here that we can sort through. Let's say, for example, state contains California. And then we can add in a condition and say, or country contains France. Hit enter and it will apply. And of course, we're still grouped by country as well. So you can have these group bys as well as our filters to go ahead and organize your searches and drill in on the information that you're looking for. We also have what's called favorites here. We can actually save the relevant searches that are going to be accessed on a regular basis. So once I find a search that I'd like to typically reference, we can go ahead and save this as a favorite to reference whenever we access this page later on, or we can even save this as a default so that every time I access my contacts, the records will be presented in this way with these filters and group bys that I've set. So for example, I'm going to say contacts in California or France. And pardon my typing there. I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to share this with all users and save this in. So now anytime I'm accessing my contacts, I can access my favorites, click on my filter, and there's the search that I created before. So that's how our favorites work here. Let's see, we can also handle an export of information pretty simply as well. Let me clear off our filter here so we can see all of our data. All we have to do is go into our list view here, we have to checkbox the records that we'd like to actually select. And of course, we can use our group bys to narrow this list down as well. But let me just checkbox all of these for now. And now just go to Action and Export. So here at our export screen, this is where we just have to specify the particular fields that we're looking to export. Let's see, this is again where our group bys and filters can come in handy. Now that we're here, just choosing the exact fields we'd like to pull. So for example, let's choose our name. Let's get out a phone number as well. And how about an email? So a very simple pull of our contact info. Then all I have to do is specify what file format do I want, a CSV or Excel file. I'll go with Excel. Let's say this is a list of fields that I'm going to access on a weekly, monthly basis, a typical report that I'm going to be pulling. I can actually save this fields list. So let me save this as, I'm just going to call this list 1 for now. Hit OK. And this is actually going to save this to be accessed anytime I come back to do an export within this application. So now all I have to do is come in, select my list, and then click Export to File. And it's actually going to generate this Excel file for us here. So there's our name, our phone number, and our email. Okay. Let's see. So one thing to note, one very productive tool that we can use throughout all applications is called the chatter. So let's see. I'm actually going to enter into our chatter here just in our contacts module. So on this particular card, right down below, this is where the chatter is going to live. So we can send new messages to customers, we can log internal notes, and we can even schedule activities directly here through our contacts. And again, this is consistent throughout other applications. It's probably most useful in the CRM. For example, I'm going to log an internal note. So just by using our @ symbol here, I could specify a fellow user. So I'm going to send Clark a note. I'm going to say, hey, check this out. Once I log this now, this is actually going to send Clark an email to his external email address. It's also going to give him a notification up here in the top right-hand side. In that email that goes to Clark, what's going to happen is there's going to be a button that'll bring him directly to this object in the system. So he'll be able to see that button, he'll see the note that I logged, and just by following that button, it'll bring him directly to this object, so to this contact here of ASUS Tech in our contacts module, where he can see the note and then go ahead and process from there. So all set to go there as far as logging internal notes and communicating in that way. We can also send a new message, so we can send messages directly to our customer. We can even bring up an advanced editor here as well. So this, let me just give an email to this customer here. And let me save this in now. Okay, so now that we're here in our advanced editor, one thing I'd like to show you guys is how to create an email template. So I can actually pull information directly from this object in Odoo, so from this contact card or from the lead in the CRM, from a delivery order even, and have that information automatically populate into a template. And this is getting a bit advanced, but I think it's a pretty useful tool to show. So let me just create a generic email here. I'm going to say hello blank. I'm going to say body text, period, and then I'm going to just say best, comma, and I'm going to have my author signature at the very end there. So I'm going to save this as a new template. And now I can actually edit this template really quickly. So if I wanted to populate this field in with the name of this customer, let's say, just going to our dynamic placeholder generators, I can select a field here. So let's say, I believe it's partner ID. Let's see, is it contact name? Let's see here. So we can bring the company name in. All we have to do is copy this placeholder expression. So let's copy this in now and then paste it into our content. So I'm going to paste it into this blank here. And let's go ahead, we can even put it in the subject. So I'm going to say Moss and Associates for blank. Okay. Also at the end, I have my author signature, just have to hit this checkbox here, and we're all set to go. So let me save this in now. Basically, all I have to do is come in, select the template that I've created. Looks like we're getting false here. I pulled the wrong field. But it's going to populate in with that field that we've selected directly into this. And now we can send this over to our customer. So again, really the only steps once we have these templates set up is to bring a new message, pull up the editor, and then select our template and send. Okay, so that's the basics of the chatter. We can also go ahead and schedule activities here as well. So for example, if I want to make sure I send an email to this customer, let's say on Friday, just going to go ahead and schedule that now. And then when I'm looking back at my contacts, using my filters here, I can see all my activities that I have to do. I can see any upcoming activities in the next 7 days and then see what I have to do today or what is actually overdue and past due. So we can filter through in that way, and this is going to be consistent through every module. Okay, let's jump into our Discuss application here. So Discuss works very similar to Slack. In here, we can actually set up channels. These basically serve as a group chat. So channels can be configured to send emails. This is a great place to centralize all of a team or department's discussion on a topic, or even just news about your business. Let's see. So direct messages here are DMs. This is an internal instant messaging tool. So I can basically have a live chat with fellow users just from direct messages here. Following, let's see. We also have a channel here that typically is here that's called Following. That would show a collection of messages from the chatter, so any chatter in the system of everything that you're a follower of. So when you mark something as read, it no longer appears in your inbox. It's one thing to note. And the messages in the chatter is still there, of course, but it will no longer exist in your inbox once you have viewed. So this is going to be rapidly updating there. Just a repository, really, of your new messages throughout the database in any chatter. Okay. So let's see. To demonstrate an example of all of our navigation tools in action, let's visit the CRM and Sales and navigate through this application. So let's go back into CRM and Sales here. Okay, so here we are at the dashboard. Once we're actually within the application, we have access to our menu items. So in our menu items, we can actually access a specific item, for example, our quotations, just by clicking in here. So I can go straight to a quotation by going to Sales and Quotations. Same thing with sales orders, and same thing even with products. So this is one way to go directly to a specific object. Let's see. I'm actually going to start with a lead in my sales pipeline. So let's go into the pipeline here. Okay, and let's create a new lead. So you're just going to be generic. I'm going to name this, we'll just say John Smith. Let's go ahead and create. Now let me go ahead and click in on this lead. Okay. So once we're here within this form view, up here on the left-hand side, we have our next logical actions. So as you can see, we can edit this, we can add some information here and then save. We can send a new quotation. We can mark this as won or mark this as lost. So again, these next logical activities will change as we work through. Over here on the right-hand side, we can see all the different stages in our CRM. So our new, qualified, proposition, and won. Let me just go ahead. I'm going to move this lead, let's say, into proposition. And let's go ahead and send a new quotation. All I have to do is specify a customer, so I'll just use Camp to Camp as an example. Let me add in a product as well. So let me create an edit here. I'm just going to keep it generic and say product. And let's save this in. So let me go ahead and save this now. I can actually send this by email over to our customer. That'll actually log this in the chatter down below. Or I can move ahead and print this. I'm just going to jump ahead and actually confirm the sale. So that's one motif that I mentioned before as far as going from a draft into a confirm. Right now we're looking at a quotation, what can be considered as a drafted sale order. Once I actually go in and confirm this sale, this is no longer a draft, this is a confirmed sale, and now we can actually go ahead and invoice the customer from this sale. So let me move forward. I'm going to do that now. So let's create the invoice. I'm going to do all my invoiceable lines. Let's create and view. So let's see, we actually have $0 on this invoice. There was $0 on the actual product that I sold. Let me just go ahead and validate this. No need to register payment. One thing to note, all the actions that I've done as I've been working through are going to be user stamped and time stamped down to the second. So as you can see, this invoice being created from the sale order, if I leave my cursor over that, it's going to give me the exact time that this occurred. Then going from open to paid and draft to paid, all of that is going to be user stamped and time stamped down to the second. Also, one thing to note as far as navigating through the system, no need to use our back buttons, forward buttons, or refresh. We can easily track back to all the objects that led us up to this invoice. So tracing back to our sale order here, we'll have reference to that invoice we just created just by clicking in here. Let's click back into our lead, John Smith. We can go ahead and mark him as won. And let's see, of course, all of those changes are going to be user stamped and time stamped down to the second as well. And then we can even track back into our pipeline here, see that John is now in our won column, and then straight back to our dashboard where it all started. So that's just one way we can actually navigate through using the breadcrumbs there, or even our menu items, just to access relevant information here in the system. Okay, so just to recap today, we've reviewed how to create and manage our database. We've configured our company data in the settings application. We reviewed our productivity tools that come standard with Odoo, and also walked through how to navigate through the database. We even walked through how to import data into the system and how to export data out of the system, And then lastly, we cover the many ways we can communicate internally through our chatter and track the communication through various applications. So one thing I'd like to mention before we actually are done today is that the pricing of our success packs will be increasing on July 1st, 2017, so a couple weeks away there. To take advantage of our current pricing, you can explore the software with me or my fellow business advisors here with 1 hour of free consulting. So we will, in that hour, of course, we'll figure out your current softwares that you're using today, figure out how your operations can fit into Odoo, and then, of course, see about next steps from there. Let's see. All you have to do is follow the link here on the screen. You'll be able to access my calendar and choose a time that works best for you for this free 1 hour of consulting. And again, this will be one-on-one consulting with me, Nathan Moss, business advisor here at Odoo. So you can find that link now in the chat. Okay. Thanks again for your time today. And for all you basketball fans out there, go Warriors.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan. I'm going to quickly switch away from this screen. All right. There we go. And now let's go into the questions. We had a few questions earlier, which I believe were largely answered in the chat, but I think this could bear a little bit of discussion, asking about our Odoo online release schedule. We are using Odoo SaaS 14 here, and enterprise users will not see some of those features in the version that we're using until version 11. Nate, could you talk a little bit about how often Odoo Online customers receive updates versus enterprise customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So with enterprise, updates will come with just the major version releases if you wanted to migrate to that next version. Those major version releases, we have Odoo 11 set to be released in the fall. So it's typically on a fall schedule. There's no set timeline as of yet, or no set date, I should say. But of course, we're forecasting likely sometime in October. Versus Odoo Online customers, you'll actually have access to updates on a more consistent basis. So basically each quarter, each 3 months or so, we're going to be releasing new features and new updates to the online system.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Let's see. We have here another question from Juan about migrating from Suite CRM to Odoo. And I think just generally addressing migrating from existing platforms to Odoo. Could you talk a little bit about that, Nathan?
Yeah, of course. So definitely would like to dive into the software a bit and see the exact functionality you're looking for that you have with Suite CRM, or seeing the pain points that are associated there. Just learning about your current operations is definitely key before making a switch. Then, of course, as long as we can get your data out of that system, we can, of course, help you with the import, just working with our implementation team, working with our functional consultants like Clark here. They can help you get the data into the system and, of course, make sure all the apps that you're using are communicating correctly and your workflows are tailored from there. But, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nate. Mm-hmm. Moving on to the next question. Here's one from Gaspar Gonzalez. Is it possible to offer an Odoo website in multiple languages?
Yes, absolutely. So the entire system is actually multi-language and multi-currency. So even on a user basis, if I'm someone accessing the back end of the system, I can see the system in a different language if that's more convenient for me. Same thing goes for front-end customers. So on the website, we actually have a translator there. Even if you don't like some of the translations that are made, you can get in and actually make edits to the words that we provide. So it's kind of flexible how it works. But yeah, for a user or even for an end customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see how that works. If you just go to our website, odoo.com, you can force a language change, and it's going to work exactly like that for your customers on your website. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Here's a question from Mr. Van Dam. How easy is it to customize the modules? It's kind of a broad question. Mm-hmm. But maybe you could talk a little bit about how Odoo customization works just on a very top level.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a tool. It's called Odoo Studio. You can actually install it as an application, basically. Studio allows you to get into the system and basically add information to forms. So you can add in new fields. You can edit already created fields. You can even create new relationships in the system. So, for example, relating a project to a purchase order or something of that nature. You can go ahead and create those relationships. Definitely recommend testing that out. You can actually start a trial and install Studio, and then you'd like to see a demo? Okay.
Yeah, Fabian just chimed in. He said he wants to see a demo of Studio right now.
Okay. Yeah, so let's get into Studio really quickly.
Let me get your screen up here, Nate.
So all I'm doing first step is just going to our Apps app, installing Odoo Studio, and let's confirm here. Okay, so once this gets back, let's see. I'm trying to think of a good relationship that we can make in the system. How about we go ahead and we could do.
Does anybody have a use case they want to see us demonstrate?
Use case of a relationship.
Drop it in the chat. Let us know if you have something interesting you want to see mocked up in Odoo Studio right now.
If not, I have a good one that I typically like to show customers who have any sort of customer service team that handles repairs in any way, shape, or form. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to install our help desk application. This is how customers who are submitting issues either through calling in a customer service line or submitting an email or even filling out a form on a website, they can basically create a help desk ticket. So that's how the customer service team can actually process those. But let's say something went wrong with one of their items and they actually need a repair. So let me actually bring in our repairs module here where we can repair broken or damaged items. So let me go ahead, I'm going to confirm this now. And let's get back to the dashboard here, and I'll be able to show you how. And the use case of this really is someone in the customer service side of things, how they're going to go ahead and create a repair order and relate it to that ticket. So it's just adding another step, really adding another department level of communication to customer service here. And just using this as an example, of course. So let's see. Let's go into our help desk here. So clicking in. Just going to go ahead and create a support ticket. So basically this is the information that's coming in from the customer. Of course, there's a description field here. I'm just going to say test ticket. Let me specify customer here. And let me go ahead and save this in for now. Using Studio here, I can go ahead and edit these fields. So if there's additional information I'd like to bring in, I can simply drag and drop in a text field here. And then once this field arrives, now I can actually edit this field and how it's going to work. So let me change the label here. I'll just call this additional info. And since this is just a text field, I'm just going to leave it as is. I can leave a help tooltip. So basically, this will leave a tip. If I leave my cursor over the field, I can tell the other users, how are we using this field? So I'll say, fill this in with additional information. Pretty clear cut there. I can leave a placeholder text to basically sit where this text will arrive. I can even make this a required field so that every single ticket will have to have this filled in. To go ahead and save this information, all I'm going to do is click close here. It's going to lock this in. And now on every help desk ticket, we'll now have this new additional info field. So that's just how you can actually add in a new field. To go ahead and create a new relationship, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into our repairs module here. And let me create a repair order. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to select our product here. I'm just going to save this in. The way to go ahead and create these relationships, let's see, you're going to open up Studio. I'm going to drag and drop in a many to one field. So let me drag that in here. And then we have to relate an object to this object here. So I'm going to look for our help desk ticket. So there's our ticket, and let's confirm. So now let me close this out. So now when I'm here on a repair order, I can relate this repair order to a specific help desk ticket. Let me track back here into our help desk module, going right back into this ticket. If I wanted to be able to create a repair order directly from this ticket, I can actually add an action button right up here. So for example, I'm going to label this repairs. I can even select an icon here. These are FA icons. Now all I have to do is select the related field. So here's our ticket on our MRP repair. So that's on a repair order. That's the proper field there. Let's confirm. Now when looking at this, I can actually get in here and change the icon. Again, you can Google FA icons and find many more than there are there in that list. Just typing in wrench, there's our icon changing. Let me close this out now. So now from a help desk ticket, imagine I'm someone who's handling customer service. So I get a phone call, customer's upset because a part broke on their item that they received. Now I can go ahead, I'll take this ticket, I can process this ticket, I can log all the communication with the customer and say, okay, this is actually going to require a repair. So now let me click in on my repair orders. I can go ahead and create a repair order. Here's RMA number 2, there's our product. Let's specify our customer and now save this in. I've just now created a repair order that is now related to a help desk ticket. So I'll be able to see all of the repair orders that are associated with this ticket right up here on the right-hand side. And then even when I'm looking back in my repair orders, again, I'll be able to see what ticket that this is associated with, as you can see here. So it's just one way to create a new relationship in the system using a many-to-one field, adding an action button there.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. That looks great. We had a couple other use cases, but we can maybe come back to those in a moment. For now, let's jump into another question. Here's one from Jennifer. She's asking if the timesheet app allows you to have employees in the field clock in and out via a mobile app. And follow-up question, does it geotag where they clock in and out?
I'd have to double check and see as far as the geotagging. But yes, we have a mobile application. It's called Awesome Timesheet, where people can access that application and log their time. Or even just accessing our platform remotely. Everything is mobile adaptive, so if you're using a Apple device, just accessing through Safari or Google Chrome, whatever browser that you prefer. Or if you have an Android device, we actually have a mobile application there on the Google Play Store. So that's how we prefer access, at least going from an Android.
Yeah, absolutely. I use Odoo on my own phone mobily sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I just open it up in Chrome, and it works great, although the Awesome Timesheet app is a cleaner, slicker way to do that.
Specifically for the timesheets, I'd recommend
Specifically
checking
for
out the
timesheets,
Awesome Timesheet application.
Let's see, moving on to some next questions. Ryan asks if Odoo Studio is available in the current enterprise version 10.
Yes, I believe it should be. I know in version 11 it's going to be actually updated a bit more. So we'll have some more capabilities, a bit easier as far as user interface when using Studio on the next version update. But yeah, it should be there in version 10, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely there in version 10. And I know there are changes planned for version 11 to make it more powerful and more user-friendly.
Right.
But it's there for you to play with starting right now.
On a test database. On your test database.
Go wild in production.
Yeah.
Don't listen to Nate. Let's see. Moving on to the next question here. Let's see. Ramsey Swiss is asking, he's asking if we can invoice from a completed support ticket upon closing of that ticket. I think that's within your use case, Nate. That might be a little bit outside the scope.
I know here from a repair order, if we're looking back at this particular use case, on a repair order, we can actually go ahead and invoice a customer. So basically what I'm doing is specifying what am I adding, what am I actually going to give this customer, what am I adding to the product that's damaged. Then I can specify what am I removing. So if there's any part that's broken or something of that nature, I can go ahead and specify that here. Actually clear off that row. Most importantly, though, I can specify, am I going to invoice this customer? Then it'll give me a subtotal, and it'll actually generate an invoice with the RMA as a source. So I can confirm the repair, start the repair, end the repair, then the invoice is going to be generated from there. Let's see. Subdomain. GoDaddy. How do I get it to point to my Google Cloud Odoo implementation? Oh, okay. So if you have a website domain already purchased through GoDaddy, that's actually what we recommend doing. We don't actually sell domains here at Odoo. But yeah, working with the implementation team, just let them know what that domain is, and they'll be able to link it directly to your website.
Yeah. That was a question from Juan Noboa, about adding a subdomain in GoDaddy to my Odoo online implementation database.
Right. And as for the actual database, as far as the back end of it, you're going to have the .odoo.com here. For the customer-facing side of the website, though, that's where you can have the domain that's going to be specified there. So you'll be all good to go.
Great. Moving on to the next question here. Digital Ports Argentina is asking about migrating old modules to the new version. I think you're talking about enterprise and/or community modules being migrated to the new version. I think that in large part that's going to be the author of the community or enterprise module responsibility. So reach out to them and ask them about migration.
Right. If you're working with a partner for the enterprise side of things, also use them as a resource. Reach out to them about migration. Let's see. We also have migration as a service on our website that you can access there. Let's see. Coming up with our next release of Odoo Online, community modules may be possible in there. I'm going to leave that as a bit of a cliffhanger, maybe a little foreshadowing.
That's an unconfirmed rumor.
Unconfirmed rumors. Community modules may be possible later on, so stay tuned for version 11.
Some tidbits. Let's see. One more question here. Gaspar, he's asking about, for a startup company with limited funds, do we need to use Odoo Online to get official patches and bug fixes?
It's
Odoo only officially maintains, it's a little bit of a complicated relationship. This is a great question for, excuse me, let me just,
Let's see here. So as for the community side of things, I mean, it's really there for our third-party app developers to get in and access the core code.
yeah,
And of course, if you have experience with coding, getting used to that system can definitely be of value to you. But for someone who is kind of new to ERP, new to software as far as using it for your business, it's not going to be something that's maintained on a day-by-day basis, doing everyday bug fixes. It's totally open source.
Yeah.
So just one thing to keep in mind there, if you're looking for something to just quickly manage your business and you're relatively new to software, I'd recommend checking out either the online or the enterprise and starting there.
Yeah, exactly. If you want that official guarantee that it's going to work from Odoo, then you could justify the cost of Odoo Online. If that cost is prohibitive, though, and you are willing to dive into the details and to maintain your server yourself and take a large degree of ownership over your IT, then Odoo Community is exactly that's there for you. But that's a choice that you need to make internally based on the cost benefit for yourself.
Exactly.
This is an interesting question that you could ask Fabian tomorrow. We're running an AMA session with Fabian at 8:30 Pacific time. Also on YouTube. Check our Twitter for the link or subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll be notified. But questions about Odoo's relationship to the community, that's the kind of question that
he would be best suited to answer.
He can really speak to,
absolutely.
And most accurately, most truly.
Agreed.
Let's see. Any more questions? Keep them coming. Let's see. Let me scroll up through the chat here and see if there's anything that I missed. And if I missed your question, please drop it in the chat again.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, here's a question from Josh asking about setting up a pick list that shows a kit or bundle that consists of multiple SKUs with their own unique bin location. That's
Beautiful.
a big question.
That's a big question. It is very possible with a little bit of configuration. I have the inventory app installed, so we're in luck. Let me click in really quickly as far as handling a pick list. Actually, to manage a kit, what's going to be required is our manufacturing application. Manufacturing allows us to have a bill of materials associated with an item. So in that way, you can actually specify, is this something that's going to go through a build process, or is this something that's just going to be a kit? So basically, if I sell off the finished product, it's going to generate a pick list of the components of that product. So let's see, now that we have our manufacturing installed, let's see, let me do a hard refresh here. It should show up on our dashboard here. Then I'll get into our inventory and I'll be able to add a quick bill of materials. So there's manufacturing, all good there. Let's go into inventory control and products. Let's look at our product here. I'm going to add a bill of materials to this, and I know just working very generically, I'm going to say component 1. Let's add one component of that, and then we'll say component 2. And pardon my misspelling if I did. So we're just going to have one unit of component 1, one unit of component 2 associated with this product. The key here, though, bill of materials type. Are we going to manufacture this product, or are we going to ship this product as a set of components? That's the key there. So let's go ahead and specify that, and let's save. Okay, and then if I go ahead and actually generate a delivery order, or if I complete a sale of our product, it's going to generate a delivery order of our components 1 and 2. So let's see, let's look back at our product. We have this as, I'm going to put this as a stockable product. Let's save this. Let's check our quantity on hand. I know working quickly here. Let me apply. So basically, we have to configure locations as well to make this happen. So just going to do a Command F Shift, look up locations and warehouses. As you can see right down here, we have warehouses and locations usage level. Okay, so right now I'm just managing one warehouse with only one stock location, so we don't have any bin numbers set up. If I have one warehouse composed of several stock locations, that's what we're going to use there. We can also use several warehouses, each one having several stock locations. So just going to touch on that one and click Apply. So that's going to go ahead and save this in. Okay, so let's go into our inventory. Let's look at our components really quickly. And let's specify that we actually have some on hand. So let's see, all good to go there. let's go ahead. Let's update the quantity on hand here. We can specify the location that these are stored. So right now we just have our generic warehouse stock location. I guess first step would be to create those bin numbers. So go into configuration and locations. Let's go ahead and create. I'm going to use my warehouse stock as a parent location. So within our stock, we'll say at bin 1. Let's go ahead and save that. And then let's create another, again, using warehouse stock as our parent location. I'm going to specify bin 2. So just a very simple example here. So defining our locations. Now going into our products here to specify that we have some on hand. So let me update the quantity on hand. Component 1, I'm going to say, lives in bin 1, and I'm going to say I have 10 units there. And this is just a manual updating of how many we actually have here. Let me update quantity on hand again. Component 2, go to bin 2. Let me specify I have 10 there. Now I'm going to generate a quick sale of our product just to, let's see.
Hey, Nathan, it looks like our internet just cut out briefly there for a minute. Looks like we're back online now, so I don't know how much of that presentation was lost. So please, everyone in the chat, let us know where we left off, and in the meantime, I will jump into another question. Here's one from Roy. It's not a question, but he enjoys these live sessions with us. Congratulations. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Moving on to the next question, Jose is asking about Odoo interfacing with Microsoft GP, which is another ERP system. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Odoo's philosophy towards integrating, especially with regards to Odoo Online's philosophy, towards integrating with other platforms.
Right. So with Odoo Online, you have access to the API. So basically, any action that's taking place within the system with the correct code can be ran outside of the system. So if we're creating a document or just pushing information or pulling information out with experience with Python and accessing the API, you can actually create those connections. As far as us here at Odoo, we don't have resources available as far as creating developments with other systems and maintaining those over time. So that's going to be something that you'll have to either handle internally or handle with a third-party company. And of course, we can help with that process on the Odoo side of things.
Absolutely. Let's see. Jennifer, this is a question from back in the beginning. She's asking about accommodating multiple companies. This was back on the company data screen. Like, for example, in a multi-company environment, how do you handle having two different logos? Could you quickly demonstrate that, or
Yeah,
how long is that going to take?
Absolutely. So just going back into our settings application here, going into our users and our companies, we can easily create a new company. So right now we have Moss & Associates here, of course, with our logo in there. To create a new one, just click and create. Here's our new company, where we can edit all of this information and add in a new logo. So all set to go there. Just clicking create and adding in the relevant info.
Great, thank you, Nate. Let's see, here's our next question. Frank Emilio is asking about how we can modify the invoice template to comply with regulations of his country. Frank, you should reach out to your local office, I think. They're going to be the most equipped to talk about local regulations with you.
Right.
Go to odoo.com/page/contact-us, and let me drop this link in the chat. And I'll do that in a second, and for now we'll just move on to the next question. Let's see. David Solis is asking about payroll. He's asking us to do a quick review of payroll. Nate, could you just briefly address that?
So payroll, as far as in the U.S., is actually not an application that we have available today. A few different ways that we can get information as far as how we're paying our employees out of Odoo using our other HR apps. You could use our attendance application. That's basically like a check-in and check-out station where you can just see when people are logging in their hours, logging in and out for the day. You can, of course, export that information and use that with a payroll provider such as ADP or something of that nature. Let's see. We also have leaves management, so keeping track of how much time off you have. Of course, categorizing that time off and allotting that to an employee would be the first step. So how many sick days in a given year, how many vacation days, how many unpaid vacation days. And then, of course, as an employee, I can get in there. I can actually submit a request to my manager. Once that day is approved, then I know, okay, I can take next Friday off.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you, Nate. And we actually do have a webinar about the HR suite. This is a webinar that's targeted at folks in the United States and Canada where we don't do payroll.
Right.
You can view that on our webinars playlist, our playlist of recorded webinars here on YouTube. So check that out. That goes over leave management, recruitment, managing your employee data, and so on. So all that is covered there, everything short of payroll, unfortunately. And again, for payroll, please reach out to your local office, your local Odoo office, and they can talk to you in more detail about your relevant local payroll. Because here in the U.S., we don't handle payroll, and so Nathan nor I, are terribly equipped to talk in detail about that.
Right.
And here's Josh Stamper reminding us where we left off. You were entering the last bin location. Do
Okay.
you remember? Could
Yeah.
you jump in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just to recap really quick. Let's see, can you see my screen now? All good. So going into inventory, going into configuration and locations, this is where we set up our bins. So we have our warehouse stock bin 1, warehouse stock bin 2. Next step I did, going into my products, I looked into my components and just made sure that I have some in stock. So just adding these, let's say component 1, I now have, let's say 10 in bin 1. So just manually updating the quantity on hand for the sake of this demo here. And let's update the quantity on hand here of our component 2. We'll say it's in bin 2. Let's say I have 10 units of that. So let's go ahead and apply. Now if I go ahead and I sell my product, it's going to be shipped as a kit of our components 1 and 2. So if I go into our sales app, let's go into sales and just go straight to a sales order. I'm going to click create here, specify a customer, and let's add in our product and give it a small price. Okay, so once I save this, and of course once I confirm this, I now have inventory operations that can take place. So this is the delivery order that's generated from the sale of this product. So I can access just by clicking on this icon here, or I could access even from our inventory dashboard. So now looking at our inventory dashboard, I now have delivery orders, so I have 2 to do. Let's click in here, let's look at sale order 3, this is our most recent one here. And as you can see, it's going to be for our selected components, so component 1 and 2, and there's the bins where they are stored, so bin 1 and bin 2 to our customers. So it's giving us these locations. So this is basically our pick list here. I can actually come in, print our picking operations. This is going to generate a document for me, and let's see what this looks like. So here's our document. It has my logo here in the top left. There's our customer and their contact info and address. There's our sale order even, so the origin of this, and then our products and the source. So there's the locations there. So that's how you can generate a pick list of kits that are going to be stored in different locations.
Great. Thank you for that, Nate. Next question is from Alex Rodriguez, and we're running low on time, so this is going to be one of our last questions. He's asking about extracting data out of Odoo to Excel. We covered that briefly in the import.
Yeah.
Maybe just go into a little depth, or maybe you missed that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, if you just want to pull records out of Odoo, pretty simple there. Like for example, if I want to export my contact record, let me just go to my list view here. All I have to do is checkbox the records that I'd like to export. So I'm just going to checkbox all of them for now. Go to Action and Export. So now I can just go ahead and specify what fields I'd like to pull from these objects. So again, looking at a contact, I have all of these different fields to choose from. I can even save a list of fields. So once I select, earlier in the demonstration, I made a list here, so of the name, phone number, and email. Now if I want to go ahead and export this, just clicking Export to File. Of course, since you want to use Excel, let me choose that file format as well. So I have a CSV or Excel file. Choose the fields that I'd like to pull, and then just export this. And there's my Excel file here. I can also pull a report. So let's see, if I'm going into sales, for example, and I want to pull out a sales report, we have these pivot tables here where I can actually build this out. So here's our untaxed total, $20. I think that's just a pricing. I can specify my measures here. So let's say quantity ordered, for example. We have the month of June. Let me even open up, let's say, the salesperson. So once I figure out the report that I'd like to pull, just clicking this download icon, it's going to pull an Excel file for us where we can run some additional functions.
Great. Thanks, Nate. We are at 12 o'clock, which means we're out of time. I see one quick question, low-hanging fruit, so let's answer that real quick. Does Odoo support barcode scanners? Can we use our cell phones as scanners?
Yes, absolutely. And we have some recommended hardware. We can drop the link in for that as well once this is all completed. But yeah, let's see. Going into these picking operations here, basically how it works, let's see. Going to our dashboard, let's go into our delivery orders, for example. And let's say we print out these picking operations here. So let's access this document one more time. You see this barcode here. So just by scanning this barcode, we actually have an application. All you have to do is be in the dashboard of our barcode app. Scan the barcode on this document here, and it'll bring you directly to that object, and it'll be in the edit stage just like this. Then all you have to do is scan the barcodes for the items that you're shipping off, and it'll literally count up the scans. So as you're scanning, this 0 will populate into a 1. If you scan it again, it'll populate into a 2, and so on and so forth. So once you actually scan these up, right now I'm just manually entering, but once you scan off your items, this field will populate, and then we actually have stock barcodes for each of these actions here in the top left. So we have a barcode for save, and we have a barcode for validate. So basically, you can process an entire delivery document, so whether it's an outcoming or an incoming shipment, you can process the entire thing without even touching a mouse or a keyboard, just by using that barcode scanner.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Nathan. With that, we are out of time. I want to thank you guys all for coming out today and remind you of two things. One, if you did not get your question answered today, it does not mean that we can't answer it. It just means that we ran out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Please use this link to book a meeting with Nathan. That plugs into his calendar.
Yes.
So you can...
So with this link here, the odoo.com/r/Nathan, you'll be able to access my calendar, choose a time that works for you. It'll block out an hour of my schedule. We can visit the software. I'll answer your questions in a live setting there. So feel free to book that time. We can explore the software further and answer your questions there.
Absolutely. And one more thing that I want to promote here is that we are having a live AMA session with our founder and CEO, Fabian, tomorrow morning. That's going to be at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And what is that? 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So please join us for that. He'll be answering questions. He'll be talking in large part about our implementation methodology and how we handle implementations for large projects, small projects, and just the story of how Odoo came to arrive on those philosophies for implementing business software projects like we do.
Yep.
And again, I want to thank you all so much, and have
Thank you
a
all.
wonderful
Go Warriors!
have a wonderful rest of your day.